DSPN, the Devlin Sports Podcast Network.
Wallaby legend Tim Horan joins us again to run his expert eye over what is happening in Super Rugby, with obviously an accent on those Australian teams. Great to have you back, mate.
G'day, Martin. Yeah, great to be back on the show, mate. It's been a pretty good start, hasn't it, to Super Rugby Pacific, the first 3 rounds. I reckon it's probably been the best start to Super Rugby ever. Good
on you. And I think that's been echoed here in New Zealand. Obviously, there's been some questions about, the defence being a bit like the NBA All-Star game, but I think that will step up as the players come to grips with the pace of the game. Justin Marshall's been on that. He said increased pace, the way the refs are reffing it and everything else. But really, it has been about entertainment, and it's been about just getting the eyeballs back on it. And what has the reaction been in Australia? Because every game, just about every weekend, has had some jeopardy at the end of it, close scores, upsets and so forth.
Yeah, I think the majority of people in Australia, especially, were a little bit nervous after coming off such a good spring tour for the Wallabies and how well they performed and the euphoria around that Wallaby tour to the UK last year. And we're going, how do we continue that euphoria and the energy that's in the rugby public around Australia? And we should get a bit nervous the first couple of weeks of Super Rugby. And for us in Australia, it's a bit of clean air. So there's no NRL on, no AFL on. So we've got this 3 to 4 weeks of let's get some more viewers, some more eyeballs on the game, and it's certainly delivered. And there's been some wonderful matches. And, yeah, it's great that, leading into a British and Irish Lions tour, that there's people, who probably watch all different sports are now going, okay, well, Super Rugby's back and I'm happy to watch it.
Yeah, good point about that too. I mean, here in New Zealand, I always sort of bang that drum. Hey, you can love the NRL, you can love Super Rugby. In Australia, you can love the AFL as well. It's just trying to squeeze it in all we can, how much you're allowed to watch, but you certainly can watch it. The Aussie teams and how you're going. Look, you've got 2 teams that are unbeaten. Okay, they're 2-0 as opposed to the Chiefs 3-0, but having 2 teams after the first 3 rounds in the top 3. I don't know that many New Zealand fans would have expected that for a start.
Yeah, I think the Brumbies have got a very tough start for their season. Of course, they went away to Fiji and Drua and won that match, came back and then lost to the Western Force, and then, of course, lost to the Chiefs last week, and then they play the Blues tonight. So
it's a tough road,
that's the big one for the Brumbies. That's 4 really tough games, whereas the Queensland Reds had a bye the first week, won their next 2 matches, and the New South Wales Waratahs, a lot of people are saying, obviously, they've got so many players from the Melbourne Rebels and big players, Taniela Tupou, Rob Leota, Andrew Callaway, that they are stacked now. It's just whether Dan McCullough can formulate this style of play that he's looking for the Waratahs. But we, in Australia, this is not disrespecting any other teams, but the Queensland Reds and the Waratahs, we need them to keep winning because most of the eyeballs are on those 2 teams.
Sure, absolutely. And, we're going to get a real test for both this weekend. Let's just look at the Reds to start with, the way the Crusaders. That's a real litmus. I know they won there last year. This is a different year, different Crusaders team and everything else. But to repeat that again would be a hell of a statement, wouldn't it?
It'd be a big call. They were certainly, they're not shy, this Queensland Reds team, and you saw that last year when they beat the Crusaders at home for the first time in many, many years. But because Harry Wilson, Fraser McRide, all these young players, they just haven't got really any fear.
There you go.
They play with a structure, but they also play sort of what's in front of them, and they got so much skill. So it'd be nice to see a Sunday afternoon footy and James O'Connor. Obviously he's been with the Reds for many, many years. Such a lovely bloke, James O'Connor. Got a lot of time for him and what he's done, not just on the field in the game of rugby, but also off the field. Like, a lot of people don't see what he does. He goes to all these coaching clinics and schools, and he loves doing it. He loves sort of paying it forward to the next generation.
Okay, and then New South Wales against the Force. This is a really intriguing battle, this one.
Yeah, Saturday night in Sydney. So the Western Force travel from Perth to Sydney. And the Western Force, after they beat the Brumbies a week ago, they would have thought, okay, we can beat the Reds at home, we can do the Waratahs, but the Reds just got them in the last 30 seconds on the last weekend, so it'll be a cracking game. It's a game when you probably looked at the draw, you're thinking, Waratahs v Force, that'll be an okay game. But now you go, gee, the Waratahs at home, can they go 3-0?
Yeah, look, and again, if they are unbeaten, because the Chiefs have got that very tricky trip to the Fijian and Drua themselves, who are 0-3, and they go there without Damien McKenzie with a hyperextended knee. Just on that, the poor old Drua, I mean, They could be 3-0 and perhaps should be 3-0 and lost every game by 5 points, a try or less, and all in the last minutes. It's a cruel sport sometimes.
It is, and they're a wonderful team and play such an entertaining brand of rugby, and fairly similar to Moana Pacific or how well they play. You look at those first two games that Moana played, and they scored nearly 90 points, I think it was, in two games, and lost both those matches. So it's a difficult competition, and I just think the pace of the game, and also you want to say to the referees, like, well done. The first three rounds, the refereeing has been excellent, and they've been letting the game flow. If people are going down with a cramp or whatever, they say, no, we're going to play on. So there's less stoppages in the game now, and I think that's down to the referees understanding what the broadcaster's looking for and what the fans are looking for.
Yeah, Tony Johnson was telling us earlier in the week that I think it's 40 minutes ball and play now, and you might think, oh, that's not really that significant. It is. It's up from about 33 or 34 over years ago, so 40 minutes is a hell of a lot, especially in the heat. Afternoon rugby, are you loving that? Because that Sunday afternoon fixture, I hope that this continues right throughout the colder months here in New Zealand. We can feel the autumn change going on here, and it's just something, the sun on the back. I don't know, we grew up, you and me, the oldies, we all grew up with afternoon rugby. There's something about it, isn't there?
There is, and more kids can go to the game, more families can attend, and then you can go home at a decent time, and you're not getting home at 10:30 at night. So it's better for the kids, it's better for families to go along and attract more people to watch the game. And it all comes down to the broadcaster to be able to accept to have an afternoon game instead of a Saturday night or a Friday night game. And so for Sky New Zealand, that's wonderful work to be able to do that. We're trying to do more of it here in Australia as well. And I think maybe moving forward, once a month there should be maybe a Wednesday night game. So in the middle of the week, you can do a Wednesday night game. Might be a 6 o'clock start, and kids from school can all go to it. So I think we've just got to give some more airtime outside of the other sports when they're on.
And the talk about the Lions tour, just harken back to that, because every time there is Super Rugby in Australia now, it amuses me. Every game, you've got to mention the Lions tour. It's a huge event that's coming. You must be pleased with what you're seeing, the Australian players, the Wallaby players that are playing. They're getting into form at the moment. And because that's so important that your national team is not only competitive in that, but really serious hopes of winning that series.
Yeah, I think, Martin, what Joe Schmidt's done the last 18 months or so has been able to create depth, not just depth in a few positions, but depth in nearly every single position for the Wallabies, and that's really important. Of course, British and Irish Lions, they've got so much depth because they can choose from 4 teams, 4 nations, whereas with the Wallabies, we need that depth. So if a fly half goes down, you need 2 other fly halves. So that's important. I think Joe Smith's done a wonderful job in the last 12 months of doing that. And, Joseph Suoli'i, him coming in back to rugby union, it's lifted everyone else and lifted people at training, lifted them in games. So, yeah, there's great anticipation for that, and it'll be a wonderful tour. The big match is the first match in Brisbane. I know it's a long way off, but if you can win the first Test match in a Lions series, you're a long way to go to win the whole lot.
Couple to go, and we'll let you go. Obviously, tonight, Blues Brumbies. And no Satutu for the Blues. He's copped the suspension. Beauden Barrett back at first 5, I think, is significant, because that says to me that Vern Cotter wants his main man running the cutter, guiding the ship. And this is a Brumbies side that, look, they stayed and hung around against the Chiefs. Probably the scoreline flattered the Chiefs in the end, but just like the Brumbies do, man. I mean, they almost won that game, or there were many periods there where you kind of thought that they could snatch it.
Yeah, they're a wonderful team, the Brumbies, and very well coached by Stephen Larkham, who I think, as a coach, has really come, to a different level the last couple of years. And, his coaching structure and the way that he manages the game and his team is brilliant. And I think he probably should be favourite for the Wallaby job coming up. But I don't know. Okay. We haven't heard too much about what's happening now. I think Stephen Larkham's ready now for a Wallaby coaching head role. So I think that Brumbies team, they will scare the Blues. The Blues it was great to see the Blues back in form last weekend, and but the Brumbies, they might find it pretty tough with Beauden at 10. He's such a wonderful player. He's, certainly in the top 5 players in the world. So when he's on fire, the Blues are on fire.
Finally, a double World Cup winner that you are, and I mean, there aren't that many men on the planet that can say that. Just looking at midfields finally and the way that it has changed, God, you mentioned Larkham. I mean, Greig and Larkham onto Little and Horan, what a combo that was. How has that role 12 changed? And, do you think that a player like you could play that role now? I mean, we normally have a big bruiser or a big bruiser outside. Just your thoughts on that whole midfield combo.
Yeah, it's changed a little bit. Obviously, Ma Nonu changed that when he came into the All Blacks, and that combination with Conrad Smith. But I still think you need that combination. You need, someone who can really carry, and then someone who can actually distribute to move into second five or move into first receiver if they have to. Because if your fly half has to carry a bit more, you then need your 12 or 13 to be a ball distributor. So you still got to have that. And of course, right through the New Zealand teams, there's so many great, 12s or 13s.
Oh, yeah.
And, I think, Paul Hippie and, Leonard Brown, there's
Quinn
so many players
come
to
back,
choose from
mate,
now. And wonderful to see Quinn, the way he got back, from that terrible knee injury. And this is pretty lonely. When you have those, long injuries for 12, 15 months, it's lonely on the physio table, and great to see him back.
Always a pleasure talking to you, mate. We'll catch up during the year. Another Super Rugby round 4 this weekend. Thanks, Tim.
Cheers, Martin.
This is the DSPN.